Let's move on to school choice. You spoke at the Texas Public Policy Foundation orientation last week and had basically a renewed push for it. You plan to push for a more expansive tax credit scholarship proposal than the one the Senate approved last year. Of course, it died in the House. What do you foresee this looking like?
Well, first of all, last session was the first time in history in Texas that the Senate or the House passed a school choice bill with money attached to it. We're going to broaden it. Nevada, I had the lieutenant governor, as you know, from Nevada there. They just passed the most sweeping school choice reform in the country. Every parent has the opportunity, and they have basically education savings accounts, and they also have scholarships so that every parent has a chance to send their child to the school of their choice. And what I said last week is, I actually used a line that I've kind of adopted. I didn't write it, but I like it. I didn't come this far to only come this far. We must have parental choice in choosing their schools in Texas. We already have it. If you're rich enough, you send your kids to private school. If you are mobile enough, you move to the suburbs. But if you're trapped in the inner city in a poor performing school, which we have nearly 300 poor performing schools in Texas that we would rate an F, you don't have much of a choice. Secondly, but we want to make it available for everyone. We give you a choice to do it. You can pick any college you want. We don't tell you where to go to college. We don't tell you what career to follow. Why should we tell you you have to go to that school? And the idea that schools are going to lose funding is just not true. If you lose a student, you get, I mean, if Mr. and Mrs. Smith get a job in Virginia and take their son and daughter with them, and they were in a public school, the school loses them to Virginia. Well, they lose the funding, but they're not teaching the kids. It really doesn't matter if little Johnny's going to a private school or little Johnny's moving away with his parents. If the school doesn't have to teach them, they're not losing, I mean, they're losing funding, but they don't have to teach them. So the schools are not going to lose. In fact, under the Nevada plan, which I really like, a lot of what they've done, schools actually end up with more money because you keep your local funding. So let's just say someone here in Austin ISD, under our new plan, goes to his parents opt, or her parents opt for school choice. The school district still gets the local tax money, and they still probably, and we're working through that, so is Nevada, the federal money, but definitely the local money. So they're going to lose a student, but they're going to keep all the local money. So the schools have fewer students and more money. And where we have school choice in America, it's less than 2% of the kids. We have 6 million kids in school in Texas. We have about 300,000 in homeschool, 250,000 in private, 150,000 in charters. So about 5.2 million are in public schools. So if 1 or 2% opt out because their parents think there's a better school for them, particularly families with children with disabilities. So look, I'm all in. We have to have competition. We have competition in everything we do. If there were only one grocery store, you know, the fruit might not be so ripe, and everything, the price of meat might be higher. You know, you have to have competition, and I'm going to fight for it again.
And just to clarify, you're basically saying not enough people would opt into this, I guess, to take away that public school funding.
Yeah, first of all, yeah, correct. A lot of people love their school, and a lot of kids don't want to leave their friends. But where you have a parent who says, my kid's in a failing school in Texas, and again, we have 300 schools out of our 8,500 that we rate as a failure. Imagine your child or anyone watching here, you wouldn't tolerate for a moment your grandchild or child being forced to go, because that's where they live, to a school that Texas says, it's a failure, it's always been a failure. Why would we do that to people? Why would we rob them of the American dream? Because you can't live the American and the Texas dream without an education.
Why not invest in some of those schools and trying to make them better?
We've been doing that for decades. We're spending billions and billions and billions of more in schools than we spent 5 and 10 years ago. And some of these schools have been failures for decade after decade after decade. So competition is good. And again, it's going to be, first of all, it's going to be a small percentage because we don't have enough private schools. You know, there'll be new schools that come along, but again, it's just competition, and competition makes us all better.